I want you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to imagine sitting in a hospital room. The lights are low. The machines are beeping in that quiet, rhythmic way that becomes the soundtrack of your life when someone you love is leaving it. You have been in this room for 11 days. You have learned which nurse works which shift. You have learned that the coffee from the third floor is better than the coffee from the ground floor. You have learned that grief, when it is happening in real time, feels less like sadness and more like a kind of suspended disbelief. Like waiting for someone to tell you this is not actually happening. You are holding his hand. He is sleeping more than he is awake now. The doctors have told you, gently, carefully, with the practiced compassion of people who deliver this news regularly, that it is a matter of days, perhaps less. You are not ready. You will never be ready, but you are here. You have always been here. My name is Anna. I was 41 years old, and my husband Thomas was dying in a hospital bed while I sat beside him and held his hand and told him, quietly, in the particular one-sided conversations you have with someone who can no longer reliably respond, that it was okay, that I was okay, that he could rest. I had been telling him that for 11 days. I believed it for 10 of them. On the 11th day, a Thursday afternoon in November, while the rain came down against the window in a way that felt almost too appropriate, a nurse came into the room. Not the regular nurse, a different one, covering a shift. Someone I had not seen before. Young, careful in the way of someone who is not sure of the protocol for what she is about to do. She looked at me, then at Thomas, then back at me. "Mrs. Anna," she said, "there's something I need to give you. From Dr. Harmon." She placed an envelope on the table beside Thomas's bed. "Sealed, my name on the front, not Thomas's, mine. He asked that you read it," she said, "when you felt ready." And then she left. I looked at that envelope for a very long time. Thomas's hand was warm in mine, his breathing slow, uneven, the particular breathing of someone whose body is working very hard at something. It will not be able to do much longer. I did not open the envelope immediately, because some part of me, some quiet, knowing part that had been paying attention to things, I had been telling myself not to look at directly, already understood that whatever was inside it would divide my life into before and after, and I was not ready for after, not yet. If something in you already knows where this is going, stay with me. Subscribe to this channel right now, because what was in that envelope and what I did with it is something I have carried for 2 years. And today I am putting it down. Thomas died on a Saturday morning. 4 days after the envelope arrived, I was holding his hand. His last words, spoken the evening before, in a window of clarity that the nurses had told me sometimes comes near the end, were not my name. They were a name I recognized, but not mine. And I sat beside him through that night, envelope still unopened on the table, his hand still in mine, and I held on until there was nothing left to hold. I opened the envelope 3 days after the funeral. Not because I was ready, I am not sure I would ever have been ready, but because it was sitting on my kitchen table and I had walked past it approximately 40 times and I understood, in the way you understand things you have been avoiding, that not opening it was its own kind of answer. I sat down, I made tea, I looked at the envelope for a long time. Then I opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, Thomas's handwriting. I would know it anywhere, the particular slant of it, the way he always pressed too hard with the pen. So the words left an impression on the page beneath. It was 4 pages long. I will not share every word. Some things, even now, even having decided to tell this story, belong only to me. But I will tell you what I need to tell you. Thomas had been keeping something for 14 years. Not a person, not an affair, not the thing I had immediately, instinctively feared when I saw my name on that envelope, something more complicated, something that had required for 14 years. A silence he had maintained with a discipline I still find honestly remarkable. 14 years before that hospital room, Thomas had made a financial decision. a significant one, made alone without telling me, with money that was technically his, inherited from his father, but that had always felt, in the way that marriages make things feel, like ours. He had invested it, quietly, in something he believed in, a small company, a friend's venture, something he had thought was an opportunity. It had failed completely within 2 years, and he had spent the following 12 years quietly, carefully, without ever telling me, rebuilding what he had lost. Working extra hours I had attributed to ambition. Taking on consulting work I had thought was for professional satisfaction. Saving in ways I had not examined closely because I had trusted him completely. He had rebuilt it almost entirely. By the time he was diagnosed, by the time the doctors told us what they told us, he had rebuilt almost everything. Almost. There was still a gap. Not enormous, but significant enough that what he was leaving me, the house, the savings, the life he had carefully reconstructed, how it was less than I believed it to be. The letter explained everything. The original decision, the failure, the 12 years of rebuilding, the gap that remained. And then, on the last page, in handwriting that was shakier than the rest, written, I think, when he was already sick and already knowing, he wrote the name I had heard from his lips on that last evening. It was not another woman's name. It was the name of his oldest friend, a man named David who had been there when the original investment was made, who had known about the failure, who had, Thomas wrote, offered many times over the years to help bridge the gap, and whom Thomas had refused every time because of a pride that Thomas, in that last page, described with a clarity and self-awareness that broke my heart completely. I should have told you, he wrote. I should have told you 14 years ago, and I didn't because I was ashamed and because I thought I could fix it, and because every year that passed made it harder to go back to the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you the keeper of a secret you didn't know you were keeping. I'm sorry I didn't trust that you would have stayed anyway. Because you would have. I know you would have. That's the thing I got wrong most. I sat at my kitchen table with those 4 pages in my hands for a very long time. Outside the window, the November rain was doing the same thing it had been doing in that hospital room. Like it had been following me. I thought about 14 years. About all the things I had not known I was not knowing. About the extra hours and the consulting work and the careful saving that I had interpreted as one thing and that had been something else entirely. I thought about his last words. David's name. A man he had not asked for help. A man whose name he had said, in that window of clarity the night before he died, with the particular tone of someone leaving something unfinished. And then I called David. He answered on the second ring. Anna, he said. And in that one word, my name, spoken by someone who had clearly been waiting for this call. I understood that he had known everything. For 14 years. I read the letter, I said. A long silence. I'm so sorry, he said. I wanted to tell you so many times. He wouldn't let me. I know, I said. He told me. Another silence. What do you need? David said. And I thought, that is the second time in 2 weeks someone has asked me that question. And both times it has sounded exactly like love. What followed was not what I had expected grief to look like. I had expected, in the way you expect things, you have not yet experienced, something linear, sadness, then adjustment, then some version of forward. A path with a direction. What I got instead was something more like weather. Some days clear, some days the kind of gray that settles into everything. Some days, unexpectedly, without warning, and something that felt almost like peace. David helped me understand the financial picture completely, not by fixing it. Thomas had been clear in the letter that he did not want that, had refused it too many times for it to feel right to accept now, but by helping me understand exactly what I had, what I needed, and what the path forward looked like with accurate information rather than the incomplete picture I had been living inside. It was manageable. Not easy, but manageable, which is, I have come to understand, sometimes the best word available. I stayed in the house. I made adjustments, some of them hard, some of them smaller than I had feared. I went back to work in a field I had stepped back from during Thomas's illness, and discovered with a surprise that felt almost like meeting an old friend. That I was still good at it. I thought about Thomas every day. I still do. Not always with grief. Sometimes with something more complicated. The particular complexity of loving someone completely and discovering, after they are gone, that there were rooms in them you had never been shown. I am not angry. I want to be clear about that. Not because anger would be wrong, but because it genuinely is not what I feel. What I feel is something more like sorrow for the 14 years he carried something alone, that he did not have to carry alone. For the pride that cost him, and me, something I cannot fully calculate. For the letter he wrote when his hands were already shaking, trying to give me in 4 pages, what he should have given me in a conversation 14 years earlier. And I feel underneath all of it something I did not expect. Gratitude, not for the secret, not for the gap, but for the letter, for the fact that he chose, at the end, when it was the hardest possible time to choose anything, to tell the truth. To trust me finally with the complete version of who he was. It was late, it was imperfect, it was written in shaking handwriting on a hospital table, but it was honest. And I have learned, in the 2 years since that, Thursday afternoon and that envelope on the table beside his bed, that honesty, even when it arrives late, even when it costs something, is always worth more than the silence it replaces. His last words were David's name. Not because he loved David more, but because there was something unfinished there. Something his pride had left incomplete, that he needed, even at the very end, to acknowledge. His last words to me were spoken the morning of the day before he died. I had been there all night. He opened his eyes, briefly, clearly, with the particular focus of someone using everything they have left. He looked at me, and he said, "You would have stayed." Not a question, a recognition, an apology and an acknowledgement and a love letter compressed into 4 words. "Yes," I said, "I would have stayed." He closed his eyes, and I held his hand until Saturday morning. Here is what 11 days in a hospital room and a sealed envelope and 4 shaking pages taught me. The people we love are not only the versions of themselves they show us. They are also the things they carried alone, the decisions they made in shame, the pride that cost them more than they estimated. And loving someone completely means, eventually, imperfectly with grace, making room for all of it. Even the parts you were never shown while they were alive to show you. My husband held my hand while he was dying. His last words were not for me. And when I finally understood why, I loved him more completely than I ever had before.